Hi everyone, and welcome back. You're watching Miss Versatile. Today I'd like to show you something different. There is a dish that my daughter really loves, and I'm going to show you how to do it. It's ragu with rice, and I make it in a very different way. So I'm going to show you what you need. You're going to need ingredients. You're going to be needing the pork that has to be cubed into small pieces. Then you will need a large onion. The mushrooms are optional. I also use yellow, red, and green sweet pepper. It's important to use butter. You can use margarine if you wish, or any fat substitute, and cream, which is Schlagsahne in German. To season the meat, I use salt, then Kräuter de Provence, which is a French mixture on herbs. Then I have aglio e peperoncino, which is the Italian version of garlic and chili peppers, which are very spicy. Then just normal pepper in a mill, and rosmarine. I think that's what it's called in English. And of course you want the ground version. This pan is set on the stove to preheat so that the bottom of the pan will already be hot before I start placing any ingredients and the pot for rice. You can use any type of rice that you wish, if it's natural, long grain, what have not. Then I've got my tripod, which helps me having a free hand, which I really love. I use this anytime I decide to make a video. If it's a picture slideshow or a live video, it doesn't matter. So now this pan has been heating for a while. I'm going to take a small slab of butter and let it drop into the pan. About that size should be enough. Then spread the butter evenly throughout the pan so that once you drop the meat in the pan, it will not stick. I season the meat. Once I've done that, I make sure that the butter that has already melted is evenly spread throughout the pan, and then I drop the seasoned meat into the pan, making sure that the pan is completely covered so that the meat is evenly distributed as to allow it to brown. And I'm going to just let this meat sit in the pan like this until one part of the meat is completely brown, almost burnt, adding just a little bit more salt. Now I'm going to cut up an onion, and what I like to do is when I take the onion, I cut off the two ends first, which you will be seeing in just one moment. And after I've cut off the two ends, I literally cut into the peel so that the skin can be removed easily. I cut into the first part of the layer of the onion and just remove the top layer. It's a lot easier to remove it that way, as you can see. Then I will proceed to cut it in half, and half of the onion, actually I'm going to be using another one for the meat, but half of the onion I'm going to be using for the rice, the other half for the meat that you see here. For the rice, I'm going to be cutting the onion in cubes. It doesn't matter how large, how small. If you have children that don't really enjoy onions, I think the cubes should be a lot smaller, but we don't mind onions, so they're kind of large cubed pieces. What I do then is, in the pot that I have, I also place a slab of butter, approximately that big, and I dump the onions on top of that butter. After doing that, I turn on the heat, of course. We don't want this pan preheated because I'm going to be doing something more unusual than not. I'm going to be placing the rice on top of this without using any water. So the rice, approximately a cup. I've got 2½ cups here, so it's approximately a cup for 2 people. And you place it directly on top of the butter. And the onions, make sure on top of this mixture, once you've evened it out in the pan, place another slab of butter on top of that. Once the rice starts heating up, it's really important to stay near the pan and mix it. In the beginning, you can leave the pan on the stove. Of course, you need your water and your cream nearby so that once the rice has turned brown, increasing the savor of the rice, so the rice will taste more intense, I guess you can say it that way. When the rice is cooked this way, you need the cream and the water close by so that once the rice has turned brown, you can immediately pour it on top of that rice. I'm waiting for the rice to get brown right now. Then I'm going to take a spoon, and while the pan is still on the stove, I can mix it. I also use a cube. As I wait for the rice to heat up, in the other pan, the meat that has been pumped full of water, you can see it. That increases the weight of the meat. That's a little trick that some butchers use, is to pump it full of water. I then stir the rice. The water that has escaped from the meat is going to be later added to the rice, so the rice will also have a very meaty, delicious taste once you remove the water out of the pan. Just turning on the light so that you can see better. The rice should be placed at medium heat, I guess you could say. The temperature should not be the highest, whereas with the meat, as you can see, the temperature is at its highest state. And the water continues to escape the meat. It is almost swimming in its own sauce. And for the meat to turn brown, it's important to empty that water into the pot with the rice. The rice now getting browner. I am continuing stirring the rice at medium heat. And you can see that the bottom of the pan is already getting brown. So this is the point where you really want to be careful. You don't want the rice to burn, just like the meat. You just want it to get brown. As I've already said, it increases the taste, makes the rice taste just so delicious. And once the bottom of the pan is turned brown, it is important to lift the pan off the heat and stir it once more. And after you've stirred the rice, you place it back on the heat, making sure that the bottom of the pan is covered. And then you add the cream. It is important that when adding the cream, you have to give it time to bubble. It really has to get almost frothy in the pan, so the heat is still up high. Once the cream has been put into the pan, immediately turn down the heat and stir the rice. I also add a little bit more water into the cream container, and I will be adding this gradually to the rice. With this form of rice cooking, it is really important that when adding the water, like here, you just make sure that the rice is covered with water, or here with the cream water mixture. Then, of course, you add your little broth cube. I chose a meat one for this recipe, and stirring it, you can see that quickly the water and cream mixture evaporates, and you always have to make sure that your rice is just covered with water. You don't want to immerse the rice in the water, you just want it basically covered. And that way the rice will absorb the cream and the water mixture. Here, as you can see, the meat continues to cook, losing most of its water. Now I'm going to add this to the rice mixture, and it makes it taste so yummy. Oops! A piece of meat plopped in there. No problem. Take it out, put it back in the pan. Theoretically, you could just leave it in there, but I like to remove it. And as you can see, the cream is just really getting bubbly and frothy. And this is a point in time where you start adding your water, and it's important to have all of these ingredients next to you so that your rice will not burn on the bottom. As you can see, I just barely cover the rice. And I let this cook again, and now I have already placed it on low temperature so the rice will not burn anymore. And especially with a milk product in the rice, it can burn even easier, so you really have to watch it.